you're reading your Ruger magazine.
And no, it's important to know twist rates. Dang it!
Well, you got to know twist rates. Put them into your calculator.
Well, you sure helped me the other day when you helped me get that. Knowing the speed of that, I didn't know how important that was till we did that shooting school together at U.S. Optics.
Yep. We did that shooting school. All right, you ready? Let me play this intro and we'll get going.
Okay.
Hey everybody, welcome on this Thursday. Usually I do this on Wednesdays. It's just been, hunting season and everything else. We've been recording quite a few sessions, off live just to try and get some sessions in there so that you can all listen to them on the podcast. But we appreciate y'all tuning in last minute. We've had some technical errors today. For some reason, Facebook decided we didn't need to post this podcast today. So I spent probably an hour and a half fighting with Facebook trying to figure out exactly how the heck we were going to post this. But it's that time of year. It's getting cooler. I love to coyote hunt, and I know a lot of you like to predator hunt. So I thought this would be a great thing for everybody to kind of come in and listen to and interact with. So if you got questions, go ahead and ask them. I know a lot of these podcasts they're not live. So you hear the podcast, you go after, you don't get to ask all the questions that you could ask. And I mean, what better than to ask a world champion coyote caller some questions about calling coyotes? First off, I'd like to thank Benchmark Barrels. Big thanks to them for sponsoring the show as always. Now, if you're looking for a 22 barrel, if you're looking for a carbon fiber, they just released a carbon fiber barrels. If you're looking for a steel barrel, anything to throw in your rifle nowadays, check out benchmarkbarrels.com. You might be pleasantly surprised at some of the stuff that they offer. I didn't realize half the stuff that they offered. Myself and Al went kind of trapping today. We've been doing that down on my property, trying to get rid of some problem coyotes. So me and Al saw each other earlier today. But a lot of you probably don't know who Al Morris is. Al Morris has got a pretty good history of winning things, and he's probably one of the best ones to ask a lot of questions to. How you doing, Al?
Good. How are you, Cole?
I'm present and accounted for. That's about it.
Good deal.
How about you go ahead and introduce yourself a little bit, and we'll kind of go down the list of getting to know Big Al. If that's how people know Al Morris. It's not Al. It's not Mr. Morris. It's Big Al Morris. So introduce yourself.
And to preface that, when I met Jay Novacek, I was looking up at him and I go, "How are you?" And he goes, "Why do they call you Big Al?" And I don't know. I'm not big next to you, but. No, humble beginnings. My dad milked 60 head of Holstein cows every day of my life till I was 10 years old. And then we moved to Springville, Utah. And then sometime about the time I turned 18 and graduated from high school, my dad, he sold the dairy, and then he sold More Man Feed for a few years. And then he just kind of kicked around and he raised and raced quarter horses. And so we had the falls, and when the horses didn't run, we turned them into saddle horses and pack horses, and then we'd sell them. And so we started hunting together. And of course, it was 1983. Wayne Carlton taught me how to use a diaphragm elk call. And of course, we had the boys. We had Wyatt and Gabe in the truck earlier today. And Wayne taught me how to use this old diaphragm elk call in 1983, and it changed my life. My dad read an article that Rich LaRocco wrote in the Outdoor Life, and my dad called him on the phone I tell him my seminars how funny that conversation was between my dad and Wayne Carlton, but he sent them diaphragms, and of course we get the package 3 days later. We got our first UPS. It was our first UPS delivery was Wayne Carlton elk calls. And of course there was 3 diaphragms, a grunt tube, and a cassette tape. And we plugged the cassette tape. I had a boom box that I used to carry on my shoulder.
Yeah.
We played the cassette tape, and welcome to Calling Elk with Wayne Carlton. And you put this in your mouth, and my dad put it in his mouth. Well, Wayne didn't know that if you had dentures, you probably weren't going to learn to blow one of these. And when my dad blew on that, he shot that diaphragm about 6 feet. And so he picked it up with a water bottle, cleaned it off. And anyway, after about 2 hours, he had a ring of spit and sweat that'd choke a goat. And he still hadn't made any noise. And I'd made some noise. And he walks over to the phone and dials at 970-245, 7498, whatever that number was. And hello, this is Wayne Carlton. He said, Wayne, now I know you're full of crap. And he said, Chuck Morris from Springville, Utah. What's wrong? He said, Wayne, these things don't make noise. He said, Chuck, they make noise. I know they do. And he said, you said we, who's we? Well, my 16-year-old kid's trying too. And he said, what's his name? He said, Al. He said, put him on the phone. Maybe I can help him. He said, Al, what are you doing to make noise? I said, Wayne, I turned it around backwards and suck in. That's the first sound ever made on a diaphragm. And Wayne Carlton said, good golly, don't do that. I'll be calling 911 from Montrose, Colorado, Springville, Utah. And have somebody rotor that thing out of your throat.
Yeah.
And I turned it around. He said, with the same pressure, blow on him. Anyway, I started making noise, and he got on the phone. He had these mules loaded.
Look,
he had
here
these
comes
mules
the dog,
loaded in the
too.
trailer. What's that? Yeah, that's Lacey Pup.
She come running. She heard something.
Yeah, as soon as I start making noise. So he had the mules loaded. It was September 13th, 1983, and he took 5 minutes out of his day and changed my life forever because I learned how to use this call. I did a full bugle in a few minutes, and he told me you lied to me. And my dad walks in and goes, what are you doing? I said, I don't know, but it works. And I went to college at Utah State University, went 3 or 4 years up there. And in 1985, 86, my buddy Rick Woodard said, are you going to come to elk camp this year? I said, no, I got to go to school. He goes, no, I'll pay you. And so that was the first. I got paid while I was in college to go call elk for somebody else. And anyway, next thing you know, I'm guiding full-time out in Colorado. In the late 90s, early 2000s, I guided the owners of Hunter Specialties from 2005 to 2000. I worked for them from the late 90s. They hired me I was on a pro staff with Bob Folkrod and Stan Potts. It was their national pro staff. And those were the only 2 other guys on that pro staff. And they paid me to be on that national pro staff. And I did seminars, and I was selling hunts for Three Forks Ranch, where I guided up there for 15 years and ran that place. And through it all with this diaphragm, I've had my knife this year. I was number 772 that I've had my knife in, that I've called to and put a knife in. And there's only 1 or 2 other guys that can say they've had their knife in that many elk. And along the way, it was 1997. Me and Garvin Young partnered up for our first world championship. And we actually did the Utah State Championship. Did not call a coyote into the last stand. And anyway, long story short, I missed that only coyote that we called in that day. And those guys made fun of us as we got back to check-in. He said, the world's in 2 weeks. Have you found your coyotes? And I go, how do you find coyotes? Anyway, they told us to take 161 coyote locator on a Johnny Stewart tape player and go find coyotes. And anyway, we went, and Garvin found some coyotes. He had to take some kids to Phoenix, Arizona that year and drop them off. And on the way back, he scouted, and he called me on his cell phone, 2:30 in the morning. Dude, listen to this. And I'm like, yeah. And I go, what is it? And he goes, coyotes, more than I've ever heard. And I go, where are you? He goes, I don't know. I'm lost. We didn't have Onyx. We didn't have any of that. He's on a dirt road between New Mexico and Arizona. And make a long story short, we went back there, killed 11 coyotes on Saturday, killed 2 more on Sunday for 13. And we won the 1997 World Coyote Calling Championship. I looked at Garvin. I said, we're going to win every year. And it took us 11 years to win our second world championship. And that was in 2007. In 2008, we back-to-back it to be the only back-to-back ever. And, at that point in time, and the only 3-time world champs, which were still the only 3-time. And in 2016, I was 50 years old, and we won our 4th world championship. Now, that was Bill Countess rules. And I don't care what anybody says, the world championship's been bought and sold, and the new guys running it, they completely abandoned Bill Countess rules. First one in with the most wins. Now it's you got to kill 5 on a first day, and then the first back in with 5 on the second day wins. And there's some guys want to say that it was just like the world championships that I hunted in, but through a series of events, the world championship for me is dead. It doesn't exist like it did. Anybody who says it's the same is bullshitting you. It's not the same. And it's more of a participation medal trophy. Some snowflakes got a hold of the contest and turned it into a snowflake contest. So that's my opinion. So, and this is our podcast, so I get to say my opinion.
It's my show. I'm going to say what the hell I want. So, now, so how would someone come back and, in your opinion, now I know people are going to argue with you because everybody has their opinion, but how would you choose, or how would you fix the world championships? How would you change it back? Would you just change it back?
Rules. You go back to Bill Countess rules, and you invite everyone. If you want a true world championship, you invite everyone from the world. You don't exclude people. You don't because you don't like somebody, you don't invite them. It's hard to measure yourself if the best people that hunt coyotes in the world are not at your contest. And right now, there isn't. The only contest I can say some of the best people are going to be at is the Nevada State, November 13th and 14th. That's truly the only contest I'll support this year. Those guys are running it's a 24-hour contest, day, night. There's not much BS. Whoever goes out and kills the most coyotes and comes back with the most coyotes wins. How can that be wrong? That's gonna separate the men from the boys. If you go out and have to kill 5 coyotes on a Saturday, and then the first back with 5 coyotes, it's almost like who's the luckiest or who cheats the best. It's not a true contest. A true contest is 2 days, day and a half, and whoever kills the most coyotes and checks in first. You can't. Anybody who's won a contest by weight got lucky. It wasn't that they were probably the best coyote callers. It was probably they got lucky and their coyotes ate one more rabbit apiece than their other guys did. Anybody who judges a contest by weight is a fool. You can't judge a contest by weight. You want to judge a true measure of a contest is whoever shows up first with the most coyotes. And I realize some people drove farther, but you better go kill your coyotes faster and get back to check in sooner than the other guy. I lost a world championship by 10 minutes. We had 13 coyotes. Another team had 13 coyotes. We showed up 10 minutes after them. We took second. And I don't want to tell you about the 3 or 4 coyotes I missed. And it's just, that's more, some people can say that's bad luck. But at the end of the day, a contest should never be about luck. It should be about the most skilled. And some days you're going to have a better day than the rest of them. And that's, you just got to be lucky. I got to call.
Right. And, in the precision shooting world, we've got, the AG Cup, which just came around, and they've got to participate in so many matches that are AG Cup affiliated. Now, I wonder if that's something that could be done on the coyote side. Like, you've got to win so many matches a year, or, in the last calendar year, you have to have placed top 5 to be invited. That's kind of how the AG Cup is. Like, you've got to have a certain points number to be the best, and to fight.
Well, and that's why I started the United States Predator Challenge 2 years ago. And it was the first contest that was ever held in 3 regions of the country, the West, the Midwest, and the East. Mm-hmm. And we crowned a champion. Those guys were the best in all 3 regions. They had to do good in all 3 regions, or at least make a good showing in all 3 regions to win. And they did, and they won. Me and Garv took second. We didn't do very good in the eastern U.S. It's the first time we'd ever hunted there. We hunted Indiana. A snowstorm came in. We were rocking. We killed 2 or 3, and then the snow hit. We shut us down, and it was mostly by region. Those guys that won hunted in Georgia. We're in Indiana. They're in Georgia. That's the true measure, I think, of a contest is one. And that's what made the old world so great is it was 2 years in Elko, Nevada, 2 years in Williams, Arizona, 2 years in Cortez, Colorado. Nobody had a home field advantage very long. And the good teams were the teams that could go make, and, me and Garv, in the 23 years we hunted the world championship, 23 or 24, we finished in the top 10 all but 3 of those years. And nobody else will ever touch that. And, there's a lot of good coyote callers that can only say they're very few can say they're a one-time world champion. And there's only 2 guys walking the planet that can say they're 2-time world champions. Nobody will ever be 4-time world champs when it was traveling, when it was 2 years in Cortez, 2 years in Williams, 2 years in Belen, 2 years in Elko. And it just, nobody had the home field advantage for very long. And you had to get good at calling coyotes in different places, in different environments. And the other thing that I've heard a lot of naysay and hiccups about is that we hunted nothing but private land. And for $35, most people can hunt where we hunted. And there's a lot of land down there that you have access to for $35. And if you know what I'm talking about, you know where I'm talking about. And so private land did not factor into much of what we ever did. We did it on public land. We did it right, and we did it the hard way.
Yeah, and that's always the hard thing, in one contest. I always hear people like, "Well, you had access to private, and you had access to
an
this."
advantage.
But that's the thing is, with all the new sounds, with all the new callers out there, with everything going on, there are a lot of good callers out there. I follow quite a few of them on Facebook, and they're always, showing big piles of coyotes, and they've figured their craft out, and they've done that. So you work now full time for foxpro, right?
Yeah, in 2010, I went full time for foxpro. I've been there. September was 11 years, and September 6th was my 11th year with foxpro full time, and it's been an awesome journey. We were putting coyotes on TV on the Outdoor Channel and even TNN in the old days. We were putting coyotes on. We were the first ones to put coyotes on TV. We Hunter Specialties Outdoors. When I worked for Hunter Specialties, we had an outdoor TV show on the Outdoor Channel, and we were putting coyote kills on the Outdoor Channel 3 or 4 years before Predator Quest came out. And so we were putting coyotes. We were one of the first, if not the first, to put coyotes mainstream on TV. And then when I went full time in 2010 for foxpro, we had foxpro furtakers on the Outdoor Channel for 12 years, essentially. And then here 2 years ago, we made the decision to get off of the Outdoor Channel and go strictly streaming live on YouTube, Amazon Prime, Roku. You can look up foxpro hunting TV on YouTube, and you can blow the next 4 or 5 hours watching us kill coyotes. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, you guys lay a lot down, which is one reason why I wanted to bring you guys on. Now, I know a lot of the people are coming off big game season, and a lot of people now head to the deserts. They head looking for coyotes. They're trying to figure out what it is. Now, we both live in Utah, and one of the biggest issues with living in Utah is they put a bounty on it. So every Tom, Dick, and Harry has been out there with their caller, and they've given these coyotes a triple PhD degree in coyote calling. So now the coyotes, they got an education, and they're smart. And coyotes that's one of my favorite things about hunting predators. They're so freaking smart. It's like a big buck. It's like a big bull. The smarts of those animals is what is so cool about them. Wolves.
There's a college professor that says a coyote only has a 3-hour memory, tops.
Really?
And Garvin Young tell him he's full of crap, because we know there's coyotes that will not, when you call them to one particular knob, and we all know that knob that's out there by the Nevada border, it's the only place to hide a truck for about 100 miles. And everybody drives to that knob. If it's a good snow year, you can see how many guys have pulled up there, stopped, walked around that hill, and called from out there in Garrison. And those coyotes get really, I think, conditioned to avoidance in those situations. Whereas if you just walk a mile from that knob, those coyotes get really stupid, and you call from a different direction. They've never received that pressure from that direction. I think a coyote, he did the Pavlov dog study with coyotes, and that they would get a food reward or they would get shocked. if the red light came on, they got shocked. If it was a blue light or a green light, they got the reward. And he would shock the crap out of some of these coyotes, come back, and 2 hours later, they would avoid the red light or whatever colors they determined they could see. I can't remember what the color of the light was. But after 3 hours, they would try every light just to try and get a treat. And I think it was just because they were greedy and wanted that treat and weren't afraid of the shock as much as they thought they were. But coyotes are really good at making a living. They got the eyes, the ears, and the noses to get it done, and they got the legs to carry them. And they are a product of their environment. And I've stressed throughout the years that a coyote in New York doesn't know anything different than a coyote in California. Now, what's different about the coyote in New York or the coyote in Pennsylvania is they get used to living in proximity to people more than, say, a coyote in Nevada gets used to living next to a person, because there is no people in Nevada and there is a crap ton of people in Pennsylvania. And the other difference is in Pennsylvania, there's not as many coyotes per acre as there is in Nevada. So you've really got to learn that country in Pennsylvania. To be successful in Pennsylvania, you've really got to learn your country. My buddy Jerry Lannon, he kills as many coyotes as anybody in PA. And if he has a 10, 12 dog year, it's a big year for him. There's just not as many coyotes, you know. And I was in Nevada last week, and we killed 16 in a day and a half with Spencer Egbert. So that's some people's year. I had in a day and a half in Nevada. And so I know there's a difference. But day in, day out, a coyote makes a living with his eyes, ears, and nose, and he's got the legs to carry him. So you need to learn how to insert yourself into that environment that they don't know you're in their environment. And then you need to discern what calls and what sounds you're going to make that will get them to come in proximity, whether it's your rifle, your shotgun, your bow, whatever you're going to use to kill those coyotes. And that's really what you need to learn. I had a guy in Virginia that bought back in the day, it was with a Hunter Specialties call, a PM4. It was one of the first wireless calls that we developed back then. And he bought it, and he called me up and said, "Your call's crap." And I said, "Well, where are you hunting?" He goes, "My uncle's place." I go, "How big's your uncle's place?" And he goes, 600 acres. I go, "How many stands can you make on that place?" He goes, 1 or 2. I'm like, "I make that every hour, you know, or that's a good half an hour for me. Is 15 minutes on to the next one." I said, "So we got to figure out when your coyotes are there." He goes, "Well, I see them every time I'm deer hunting." "Well, do you see them all day, every day?" And he goes, "No, I only see them about every 2 or 3 days when I'm sitting in the deer stand." And after a couple of years of howling at night and locating and some of these techniques we've developed through the years, he figured out that those coyotes were on a 3 to 6 day loop. They were only on his uncle's place for one night, one morning, every 3 to 6 days. And I said, "Then you need to time it when they've been gone for 4 or 5 or 6 days. You know they're going to be coming through." And he finally called in a coyote and killed it. And it was a big deal to him. And I really stress that in my seminars. You need to learn the areas you want to hunt, and then you need to insert yourself in there. And then you need to decide what sounds you're going to play, depending on the time of year. I mean, I break coyote calling into 3 seasons, Cole. You have your fall season that goes into breeding season. The fall season starts August 1st for me. August 1st to December 31st is fall season. I primarily use prey distress sounds. Once January 1st hits to about March 30th, April 15th, April 30th, somewhere in there, that's breeding pup season. And then the summer, the dogging season starts around May 1st. Usually doesn't get good till June 1st. And then I'll run it up to August 15th, September 1st, when the fall season kicks in. You can base the entire year of coyote calling around one event, and that's breeding and having their pups. They breed every coyote, whether it's old Mexico to northern Canada, Alaska. They all breed February 15th, the peak. But the last few years, I've seen coyotes breeding in late December, early January, and I've seen them breed till March. They seem to know, and I guarantee you, up in Montana, you do those coyotes. They bred late. They had late puppies in July. I was still seeing little tiny pups. I really think they're going to withhold the breeding season this year. I'll bet you those coyotes don't breed till end of February, March up there in Wyoming this year, or Montana and Wyoming, because those elk rutted late, which tells me that May 15th is going to be really rough on those calf elk. So those cows delayed their estrus cycle 15 days, which if they were going to have their babies May 15th, they're not going to have them until May 30th, June 1st. And that means I think the coyotes will delay their estrus cycle this year. I think it'll be a late estrus cycle up there in Montana this year. And it's just my thoughts. It'll be, I can't wait to see what May 15th is like up there in north central Montana where I elk hunted.
So this is the question, I guess, because, you know, everybody and their dog goes out there, and I've heard it. I've been on a stand, and all of a sudden I hear the sound, and I'm like, shit, there's the jack. Somebody's playing the jackrabbit, you know, and that's the thing is, it's like, you know, with so many people buying electronic calls, you know, there's a lot of great call companies out there. There's a lot of great sounds out there. But, you know, everybody seems to overload it with, you know, the waning jack, the dying jack, the cottontails, that kind of stuff. What would you say? So for right now, so somebody who's go out in the field right now, what are probably the top 4 calls? Now, I know that depending on what it is, you're going to change that up, because
for the last 20 years, Cole, you know, you get away from the last 4 or 5 years. Prior to that, everybody played the rabbit. That you heard it. It was the standard. Just play the rabbit, because the rabbit works. Why does the rabbit work? Because a coyote's got to eat. You want to fire on the 4 cylinders of a coyote. They're going to eat. They're going to breed. They're going to protect their young, and they're going to protect their territory. And then there's curiosity and some other things in there, but you basically got 4 or 5 cylinders to fire on. And since, you know, the Pied Piper came out in the 40s, was one of the first hand calls he came out with. He had an old cow horn with a brass reed on it for a howler. It was 1943, I think, is the first ad. And Jay Neistetter can tell us more about that, because he's got some of that original, you know, that's when the birth of, but prior to that, people were using everybody, I can't sell you that call. Y'all own it. People were kissing their lips. People were knowing they could go just with a hand call, make that dying rabbit. And here in the late 90s, foxpro came, and the foxpro was the first remote control game caller that worked, and it was made in America. That even made it better, and it's still the best. All the other electronic calls are made, and like you said, there's a lot of good ones, but those Chinese ones don't last like the American ones. And the only good thing about some of those Chinese calls is that they can load some great sounds. There's some guys out there recording some great sounds, and you can't take anything away from those sounds. The only thing you can give them crap about is they put them on cheap Chinese stuff to distribute it. And if they could put their sounds on that good American caller, and my buddy down in New Mexico, he makes some great sounds that he doesn't particularly cleave to one call company. He says his sounds can go on any caller, and that's what makes it advantageous for him, is that there's a lot of people putting his sounds on their callers, because sounds are where it's at. Now, you ask me what sounds work best. The last 4 or 5 years, during this August, September, October, November into December, and the World Championship was always the first Friday and Saturday in December. Rabbit distress, bird distress, deer fawn distress, that was what you're going to kill 90% of your coyotes with. Now, with us getting better recording capabilities, better sound capabilities, we can start getting some of these pup sounds, pup fights, things like that. So if you can go, if me and you were going tomorrow, and I didn't care if we're going right out west of your place, which is one of the most heavily called, heavily hunted places in the state of Utah, I would start out with a single lone howl. Non-aggressive, single howls. They've done studies. The number one thing coyotes will come to is other coyotes that are lone howling, non-aggressive. That's just a proven fact. If you want to write down one sound that you can always call coyotes with, it's single lone howls. And we don't know what they're saying. I'm over here. I'm lonely. I love you. They might be saying, you're ugly. And then the coyotes,
that's definitely.
You don't know. We don't speak coyote. None of us do. Even the guys think they speak coyote don't speak coyote. We speak English, and there's a big difference. At the end of the day, single lone howls, non-aggressive, work best for me. Then I'll just let it sit for 2 or 3, 5 minutes. Depends. Every day is different. The number one question I get when I travel the country from Pennsylvania to California when I do seminars, how do you know what to play and when to play it? I don't. I let the coyotes tell me. I'll do a sequence. If it doesn't work, I'll change the next sequence up. The first time I'll howl, wait 3 or 4 minutes, then I'll play some prey distress. It may be rabbit. It may be bird. It may be deer, antelope. It may be kid goat distress. I thumped coyotes this summer with kid goat distress, and it sounds just like a mule deer fawn. I know places that have mule deer fawn, whitetail fawn. You play kid goat distress, you're going to kill some coyotes. Apologize. I must have the COVID from hanging out with you today.
You got the COVID.
Got a little cough going. At the end of the day, I'll play single lone howls. I'll play a rabbit for 7 minutes. When I get to the 7-8 minute mark, I'll play some kind of pup fight. We just come out with 237 new sounds at foxpro. Most of them are pup cries, pup fights, pup whimpers. We got the new Mrs. McCottontail. That has become my number one rabbit sound in just a short amount of time. Prior to that, it was Lightning Jack. But guess what? I still played Lightning Jack, which has been around since the late 90s. And the reason it's called Lightning Jack is there was lightning in the distance when Steve recorded it in Texas. But
we all know what that sounds like. Everybody's
no, it's just a great sound. And it's still a great sound. And just because you think it's getting overplayed in your area, it's probably not. It's those coyotes, they just hear a rabbit. And if the last time they heard a rabbit, they heard that 55 grain, 60 grain pill go by them at 4,000, 3,800, 3,250, and that crack that it makes. And there's nothing like a crack downrange from one of these high-powered rifles. He may not come to that sound, but that's my number one sound. And if they're not, and that I will do a variation of howls, rabbit distress, bird distress, fawn distress, and then I will do fights. I will do a variation of that all the way through, even into breeding season. In breeding season, I primarily switch over to nothing but vocalizations. But at the end of 15 minutes of vocalizations in January, February, and March, guess what I play? Some kind of distress. I don't want to leave any cards on the table. I want to be able to say, I pray distress this much, and then I do this, and then I'll find that, I'll unlock that key. And when I find what's working that day, I stick with it. I guarantee you. And then the next day, guess what? All bets are off. You don't know. Something changed. Barometric pressure, temperature, moon phase, wind. There's a lot of talk right now in the industry about the high-pitched sound.
Like a sonar type.
Well, it's that I got to now I'm blanking. Anyway, we've had the ability, and we've I recorded
sonic, transonic.
Yeah.
Something.
No, it's you know exactly.
So yes, I know exactly what you mean. So that's the funny thing is I've seen this in a lot of calls over the years. Is one of my buddies, he's got this old rabbit call, and every time we go out with that damn thing, it's got some sort of a raspy sound that just like ignites them. And we talked about this earlier today, and both of us are good friends with a guy named Kerry Carver. Now, if anybody knows coyote calling and you don't know who Kerry Carver is, Carver Calls, you're missing out, because he makes some phenomenal calls. He made me some custom calls last year, and I appreciate him deeply for doing it. And there's one of his calls that every time I hit it, it's like a light switch went on. Yep. He makes the cocobolos. He makes some beautiful calls.
He made that for me. I don't know if you can read that. What does it say? Big Al. Yeah. Thanks for all you do. Kerry Carver is an amazing dude. And you cannot get a better, you just can't get a better call than what he makes. And
that's what I'm talking about. Is they've got something in them that just, and there's a lot of the foxpro sounds that are like that. As soon as you turn them on, something lights up, and it's like a light bulb. And there's a few times I've been out here, satellite calling at night, and nothing. And I hit one of his cocobolos, and the entire valley just sounds like it just lights up, and it's awesome. But I know one of the biggest questions that you get asked is you're talking about, learning coyotes, making different sounds, doing things like that. How long does Al sit on a stand? Because that's one of the biggest questions. It's like, okay, well, I've heard a lot of times that, most stands you sit on, the coyote comes in. You're just not privy to where he came in and looked at you. But there's a lot of times to where you get up too early and you walk out and you're like, shit, there was a coyote coming. How do I figure out he was coming? Or I wasted my time on this stand. I should have been at 2 other stands by now. How do you figure out your time management when it comes to stands?
Okay, so if you're in the world championship, if you don't make a stand every 8 to 12 minutes, you won't beat me, because I make a stand in 8 to 12 minutes. That's all I stay. Anything that comes after 12, I leave. When I'm fun hunting, I'll stay 20 to 30 minutes. And when I'm videoing, I'll stay 25, 30 minutes because I want to maximize my time, and it's so hard to carry the camera everywhere. But
now,
you just have to watch those.
Is that from turning the call on? Or is that from well, how do you measure
when you turn the call on, when that remote kicks on, when that remote kicks on, I stay 8 to 12 minutes. I've kept a journal since 1997, Cole. 72 to 78% of the coyotes I call in come between 3 and 7 minutes. Another 12% come between 7 and 12 minutes. So what is that? 80 some percent, almost 90% of the coyotes I'm calling come between 3 and 12 minutes. That 10%, a bunch come before 3, and then a few after that 12 show up. And then I've called coyotes at 40 minutes. I think they finally heard us and came in. So you just have to be, if you want to be fast and efficient, you just got to commit to be fast and efficient, because if you're doing 8 to 12 minute stands, you should make 25 stands in a day. If you can't make 25 stands in a day, you wouldn't beat me. And
it's good to know.
It's huge. It's hard. It's physical. Not many guys can do it. And that's why they're not 4-time world champs, is because when you got a guy like Garvin Young who he pushes you all day long, and it's awesome to have somebody that wants to win. You got to have somebody that wants it as bad as you. And that's what made us a great team. There's been some great teams that would have excelled way over 4 world championships, but they couldn't stay together. Personal issues, family issues, whatever. They just didn't stay together. So you got to make those quick stands, and you've got to, if we're hunting that contest and all of a sudden we see him coming at 12, 13 minutes, I'll stay another 3 or 4 minutes to pick up maybe that extra dog. But you'll know if they're coming hard and fast and you're shotgunning them. I mean, that one year we killed 18 coyotes and 13 or 14 of them with shotgun. They were running us over. And when they're coming that hard, that fast, and you're shotgunning them, there's no reason to stay. Stay 8 minutes, 10 minutes, 12 minutes, and on to the next stand. But you've got to scout and find that country, and that's a big part of coyote calling, is scouting.
Right. Yeah, and I've done that a lot. I've gone out, I've driven down dirt roads at night. I've spent whole nights out calling. I'll call, you hear them respond, you can hear them like, hey, here's a pack, we're going to hit this the next day. Then you show up the next day and they're just gone, silent, and that's one of those things that's always been a hard thing for me to try and figure out. It's like, I know they're there. So what am I,
we're not in a static environment. There's a lot of external factors we know nothing about. And I see the Kindle boys are on, and they want to know if you play the call the whole 20, 30 minutes. No. Every day is different. Some days I'll play it 30 seconds on, a minute off. The next day I may play it a minute on, minute off. The next day I might be a minute on, 2 minutes off, 3 minutes off. And some days it might be 10, 15, 20 seconds. I'll volume up for 10 seconds, volume down I want that sound up and down, ramping up and down. Wind is a huge factor. And, it's just, it determines everything. If you got a 5 to 10 mile an hour wind, cut your day in half. If you were going to kill 10 coyotes, cut it to 5. If you got a 15 to 20 mile an hour wind, cut that in half. You're just not going to get the coverage. And that's the deal with this new, what is that sonic I'm looking for? The
Yeah, you
Oh,
told me
gee.
about it today. I can't remember what the hell it
Yeah,
was.
no, I can't believe I blanked it. They use it for, you know,
So you kind of hit that though, because I've always wondered that. Now I've had a lot of different big hunters tell me because I've done my research over the years. I've hunted with some bigger names, and trying to understand this. And a lot of guys will come out right out of the gate, full blast, full power. And
yep.
I've
And
kind of
just
come
let it
out
eat
with my
the whole time.
yeah, and I've kind of come out with my own is I'll start real quiet because if there's a coyote, within
Close.
a few hundred yards, I'll start quiet and then it kind of perks them up. But if you blast it out as loud as you can, to me, I'm like, oh, the coyote's like, holy shit, what just happened? I'm gone.
And
I
in
don't know.
Nevada,
What do you?
this last week, we walked around this hill, sat down. I looked at everybody, thought everybody was ready, turned the call on to Mrs. McCottontail, and I've got it started out at about 18. It's below half. It's 20. It's a 40-stage volume, so I started it out at 15 or 18. That call no more than got 3 notes out, and a coyote is streaking off the opposite hill at 100 yards, going right, puts his nose right in that new XHD speaker on that X-24. And Garvin didn't even have the camera on. We never even got any video of this coyote running down the hill at 100 yards to the speaker. He was right there, and I really think if you would have been blaring that sound, if you would have had it loud, I might have scared that. I would have scared that coyote. And so I do think you've got to unlock it. Every day is a new combination for loudness. Like in 2016, when we won our 4th world championship, we turned Cal's Cottontail on. It was one of foxpro's Cottontail sounds. We turned it on at 35 on a shockwave. It seemed that loud, wah, wah, just immediate, and they were running us over. We were shotgunning them. And his call was set wrong. Garv's call was set wrong. But after about the 5th or 6th one we shotgunned, I said, don't change it. It's working. For some reason, loud and aggressive, and that's the only time I've ever done that. But it really worked that day. So you need to try something different. If you're not calling coyotes in, completely change what you're doing. Change sounds, change volumes, change time in between, the periodic, difference. Anyway, it's just it's part and parcel. So as you go through, everybody goes through this learning curve, and you've got your learning curve, and you've learned what works for you, and quiet is what worked for you, Cole. So
yeah, well, it was starting off quiet. I'd started at 10
quiet.
to 12, to where I could barely hear it because I'm like, I've seen that plenty of times where something's just laying, just right off the ridge, especially because that's one of the biggest things I try to do. I try to come in quiet. There's a lot of guys that come in that sounded like I heard a water buffalo coming to water that just don't give a shit,
Right.
That's one of the big things. And I learned that with Tom Austin, I walked into a stand kind of new, and Tom was kind of showing me the ropes, and I had my hands clear full of shit trying to pack in, and also this coyote pops up. I'm like, drop everything and try and shoot, and it's one of those things that I try to sneak in, and understanding wind and everything else. But that's another big question is wind. Everyone understands, and everyone I've gone with has a different understanding of wind. Usually you set your call up wind so many yards and you try to sit downwind of it because the coyote's going to wind you, things like that. So let's go through kind of wind, because a lot of the new coyote callers, the new coyote guys, don't understand wind. And one thing, let's kind of start off at the beginning of what they need to understand. Now, one thing that I've used a lot was it cornstarch? Is that the really
puffers?
Yeah, to try and get so you use
fine
the
wind indicators. It's either talc powder or cornstarch.
Yeah.
It's what I used to use elk calling.
Yeah, so you leave your truck. As soon as I step out of my truck, I'm testing wind. I'm trying to understand.
Before I ever get to a stand, I know exactly what the wind's doing. Now, when I first started out, Cole, the first 10, 15 years of my coyote calling career, wind was everything for me. And I only wanted to call upwind. I wanted the wind in my face, the caller out in front of me. Or if Garvin, before we had electronic callers in 97, 98, 99, 2000, it wasn't until 2003 that we got a good electronic caller. But I used to get downwind of Garvin, 80 to 100 yards, just standard. He would do the hand calling with a Cersei call, and I would be downwind of him. And that's all all you really need to understand about coyotes and wind is they will circle to get the wind. I've seen pups that have never been around people, that have never been called to, circle to get the wind. Why? It's bred into them. They know that once they smell what they're hearing, it's another confirmation. It's another safety mechanism. It lets them know if a bigger coyote has made it to the rabbit before they did, or the bird, or whatever sound you're playing, or the howls, or they want to know who it is. They all know the individuals in their area. Just like my voice is way different than your voice, coyotes can tell each other from their voices. And so we used to take the 2 bottles of skunk essence that by themselves were not bad, but when you put those 2 bottles together, it made the skunk scent from hell. And if you got it on you, you couldn't get it off. If you accidentally unleashed it in your wife's car, she killed you for a year. You couldn't get it out of there. We used to put that upwind, downwind. And then one guy told me one time in a seminar, I used to tell him about this technique we used. And he said, usually when a skunk sprays, it's because he's scared. And that would make the coyotes scared because they know that skunk sprayed. So why would you do that? Alert the coyotes to your presence. And I thought that guy was pretty smart. So we got away from all skunks. And then we've used all the decoys you can use. At the end of the day, wind is the last thing I worry about now. With the rifles I shoot, with that 6mm Creedmoor on that Ruger American, with that Trijicon on top, and you got the OSS out on the front, which is a different brand than you run, Cole. But out there with those rifles that can shoot hundreds of yards, I don't care if those coyotes are circling 100, 200 yards downwind. If I can see it, I'll shoot them. Right there. Yep. I see it.
Starts with a silencer and ends with a coat.
Oh, yeah. That's your boys. My boys are up in Salt Lake. OSS.
Silencer is.
That's the best silencers in the world are made in Utah. Let's just say that. We're safe with that, aren't we?
We're pretty close.
Yeah. Anyway, I don't worry about the wind at all now. After video and all these years, and I'm putting more coyotes on video than most anybody is. We're doing 80 to 100 coyotes on video. We can't lie about it. And they're smelling us. They're leaving. Hell, I miss as many as I shoot at, and I'm picking them up running. A wind is the last thing I worry about. If it's a crosswind, I'm always looking downwind. If it's in my face, I'm looking there, but I want to be conscious. Maybe I can't see behind me, so I don't care about what's behind me. I'm just going to focus on what's in front of me. And you can't have it all. You can't always have the sun at your back and the wind in your face. It doesn't. The real world doesn't work that way. Quit worrying about the wind. Hunt where you can hunt. Try to get the wind to advantageous. And if you can't, and if all you can do is see downwind, go with it. Make sure you can see 200, 300, 400 yards. If a coyote circles out there, shoot him before he's running. And that's the best. That's the best thing I can say to a newbie about wind is be conscious of it, understand it, be a good predator hunter. There's some things we got to talk about, Cole. You've got to have a good rest. You know, in the old days, we used to have nothing but a Harris bipod. Yep. Now, all I'll run is the 3-legged Bog CLD. You know, I got the new Adrenaline. I run the 4-inch shooter shelf on it. You've seen me shoot off of that. That's all I run. But there's swaggers out there. There's a lot of companies making great pods, bipods, monopods, tripods. If you're going to be a good predator caller, you've got to have a rifle. And that's where, when we've been talking about this, Cole, your long range shooting really transposes over to the predator caller. That's why I can't wait to work with you on some of these projects we're talking about. I mean, how many of you would come to a school where Cole would teach you long range shooting, and for a couple, 3 days, we do classroom work on not only shooting, scopes, guns, loads, bullets, performance, things like that, but then we take you out in the field and we do a high end. We can do contest calling. We can do basic predator calling. You know, we'll get me and Garvin there and some of the FoxPro boys, and we can do a high end shooting deal into some high end predator calling. And it really, I think it really will set us apart if we decide to do this school we've been talking about, Cole. And that's why I really think it's important that all your people, all your guys, you know, your long range shooting guys may not be predator hunters all the time, but your predator hunters all want to be long range gurus. They want to learn. They want Cole's experience behind that rifle. And isn't that what this is all about? These podcasts and YouTube and all the video we've done is to shortcut some of these guys' learning curves. Yep. And that's why we're here talking tonight, Cole.
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing is a lot of people are trying to figure out, you know, that like I don't know how many times when I was first starting into this, I'd sit on YouTube for hours and hours and hours, you know, and understanding this and trying to understand, you know, how to set up a stand, coming into a stand, what calls to make, how to read a lot of this stuff. And that's one of my biggest things is like now sitting down with somebody, instead of just watching YouTube, I can sit down and pick their brain. Like, hey, in this position or in this stance, you know, little things like, hey, if I'm a right-handed shooter, how am I going to set up so that I can make that swing across in case something's coming? Because I shoot off a tripod. I lock my rifle into a tripod because then my hands are free. I can glass. I can do everything. Nothing's in my hands. I've started using the Vortex monos because I can just kind of pick up and look because my eyes are getting bad. I'm getting to be an old SOB. But there's so many things that a lot of people would just love because they're like, now instead of making all the mistakes, I can come to this and I can learn ballistics. I can learn, hey, this bolt works in my gun. We're going to draw you a personal profile of, hey, your ballistic solution. So now you have to hold, everything's built in your scope. We're going to train you how to hold in your scope. Everything's going to be done that way. We're going to go call freaking coyotes with a 4-time world champion coyote caller. I mean, shit, yeah, sign me up. I'd be all over that. And that's kind of
hopefully we can get, you know, we'll get Hornady to send us some ammo. We'll get Ruger to send us some guns for these guys. We'll get our optics companies, Trigicon. Hopefully they can loosen up some ties on some scopes and we can put these guns together, get these guys shooting on the range, get them shooting out to 1,000 yards, and then take them out in the field and call coyotes in for them. And we got the places to do it across the country. I think we can do more than one school. My buddy Fonzie Haskell's got a place up there in Wyoming we can go to, and we'll probably just get our feet wet with a few people on a first school and see how we do. But
I've got Oklahoma, I've got Texas, I've got Arizona, I've got places everywhere. So
you've got your sponsors and I've got mine, and together we can put something together that we can do a school that's never been done. We can do a school better. There ain't nobody won any more championships than me and Garv, and we can do it better than most. I guarantee it.
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing that people have the hardest time with is the mathematical equations behind, you know, the shooting part of it. And a lot of people get kind of caught up in it. And like I showed you when we went out and shot the other, it's easy. I mean, just getting
it look easy. You make it look easy because you're so comfortable doing it and you've done it so much. And I know the more I do it and the more I do it with you, the better I'm going to be at it. So that's why I'm going to get you through Wyatt. We're going to take Wyatt fishing and trapping, and I'm going to get more access to you through Wyatt. How old's Wyatt?
He is 9, and he's freaking an addicted.
We almost showed. We put traps in the ground 2 days ago. Pull up that picture. Show these.
Let's pull that up. Let's pull that up.
We went trapping. Look at that print.
So if you can see on my screen, and you guys that are going to be listening on the podcast, you're not going to be able to see it. But right here is a print. Right here is a print, and right here is the pan. So he missed the pan by maybe a half of an inch right there. And he dug into the hole. He got mad. He peed on it. So he turned, peed on it, stood right here, and still missed
my pan. So, I really have I'm telling you what, I have an affinity for trappers because when they got 60 million acres out there and they can get a coyote to step on a 3-inch circle, I almost got it done for Wyatt. And hopefully when we go back on Saturday to do our second check, we can show him a coyote in a trap. But, I'm not as good a trapper as I am a caller.
Yeah, after this, we're gonna go call him.
Yeah, no, I trap for fun and call for a living.
So there's go ahead.
No, there's just some basics everybody needs. We were talking about it, a good rifle, a good flat shooting rifle. That's more your department. I just tell people I shoot that Ruger American out of the box. I'm shooting a 22-250. Can you touch the biggest factors determining their populations year after year? I'm seeing a ton this year. The weather, is there any evidence two of them having more pups when they sense the populations are low? Scott, coyotes are amazing. And I'm going to answer this question if that's all right, Cole.
Go ahead.
Coyotes, when there is lots of prey, lots of food, and not very many adult coyotes around, on an average year, if there's average prey, average coyote populations, they'll only have 4 to 6 puppies per litter. If there's not many adults around and there's lots of food, they can trigger to have 12 to 16 pups per litter. That's why we've never got rid of the coyote, is because you can poison them, you can aerial gun them, you can have guys like me out there shooting the hell out of them. At the end of the day, they're still going to have 12 to 16 pups per litter. So if you have 100 coyotes in an area, how many of those coyotes can you kill? Let's say you've got a 10,000 acre ranch and you've got 100 coyotes. How many of those coyotes can you kill and in one pup crop have 100 more? 75. You can kill 75 of those 100 coyotes, and the 25 left will get you back to 100 pups in one pup crop. So what a hell of a renewable resource. So if you're wondering why you're seeing a lot of coyotes, is because we've been leaning on them everywhere in the West. They're flying in Nevada. They're flying every day in Nevada. They killed 80 some coyotes in the valley I hunted, and I still killed 16. 2 weeks after they flew that area in Nevada, I killed 16 coyotes in a day and a half. After they flew it and smoked them in that area. Coyotes are very, now last year in the same area of Nevada and western Utah, they got parvo. I was hearing tons of pups in July. I was licking my lips. August, September, we're going to have a huge pup crop. They all died. Parvo distemper went through a lot of Nevada. And you're pulling up the Hunting TV YouTube site. The only limiting factor to coyotes is food. If there's lots of prey, lots of food, they will have lots of babies. If there's not much food, not much prey, they don't have many babies. They know they're not going to live. So 7-year cycle on rabbits, right? Every 7 years, you've got a peak and then a valley. Coyotes are about 4 or 5 years behind that to the peak to the valley. So just look at your rabbit population, look at your small, 75% of a coyote's diet, small ground-dwelling mammals, rodents, mice, voles, moles, things like that. So that is the determining factor with coyote populations, is food. That's it.
So this has always been a big question here in Utah, because they're like, and I'm going to have a biologist on pretty soon so we can kind of talk about this so we can understand it. But I've heard so many people say the more pressure you have on coyotes, the more they're going to breed, because they've got pressure and they know they need to keep going. Now, I've heard some people say, well, coyotes can honestly breed up to twice a year, but I don't know how that is. But
no, they'll only breed once a year. They'll only breed in February, and they'll only have their pups in April, and they only raise them through the summer. If you see 2 litters in a particular area or den area, it's because they will retain a helper. What they found over the last 40 years is that you could kill mom and dad, but guess what? The pups in the den were still living because they would retain a female from one of their previous litters, and she'll feed them pups and get a few of them through. And sometimes that female gets bred too. And she might not get bred till March or April, and then she has pups out in July, and people say it's 2 litters. It's not. It was just one of the helpers got bred. But the more you lean on coyotes, the more pups they'll have. What's good about leaning on them is they're not there to eat those fawns. And if you can get your deer population up and the fawn population through that summer, and then the next year you go back and aerial gun and shoot and $50 bounty them, and you stay ahead of them. But guess what? I think coyote hunting's as good in Utah as it's ever been. There's as many coyotes in Utah as there's ever been, because coyotes are coyotes. They're having 12 to 16 pups per litter in Utah, and we're going out there and hammering them. And here's a great question. What about going suppressor? Is it a huge difference on coyotes? I'm shooting a 6mm Creedmoor, Christensen Arms, MPR, carbon fiber. Can you shoot a better gun than that? I don't think so. Unless it's a Ruger American. Or what are you running, Cole? What are you making? We're biased. No, that you can't. I can't. There's no flies on them Christensen Arms guns. There can't be. They're great people, great guns. Going to the OSS has been a game changer for me, especially hunting coyotes. If you watch, if you can go onto that YouTube web and look at just a few episodes ago, I killed a quad. I know the only reason I killed those 4 coyotes out of the 5 that came in was because I was shooting suppressed, and I dang near went 5 for 5. And I think shooting suppressed, Cole, you'll know more about this than anything. For some reason, when I screw a suppressor on the end of them Rugers, they shoot better. Is there something about shooting suppressed that helps accuracy?
It does. There's a couple different factors with that. And it's been around in the ELR community for a long time with barrel tuners. Barrel tuners is something you can put on the end of your gun and adjust the weight in or out. So a lot of times you can change the barrel. Right. So like this one behind me is the new Omega 36M from Silencer Co. But this doesn't just affect coyote hunting. This has affected elk. This has affected deer hunting. This has affected antelope hunting, because a lot of times that sonic crack that you hear is now dissipated with a good suppressor. There's a lot of shit suppressors out there, but with a good suppressor, that I've seen so many times where an elk will just stand there and it'll start looking around, like, instead of a gunshot to where they have.
I got my cow a few days ago. You had me dial my range perfect. I did not dial my range perfect in my scope. I didn't dial the scope up. Cole knows why. I was just holding. I was just holding crosshairs. No, I missed twice. I missed that cow twice, and she stood there because I was shooting that 6.5 PRC suppressed, and then I got my hold right, and I shot her right. I just missed the heart. It was right there in the money. And shooting suppressed has been a game changer for me. It really has. All animals are affected by that sonic crack. When you take that sonic, and the biggest game changer is right here.
Yep.
Your own hearing. I won't take my grandkids shooting again without suppression. I wouldn't take Wyatt shooting without suppression. There's no reason for our kids. I've got 68% hearing loss in this left ear because I've shot so many rifles that way. And it's just, I wouldn't shoot a gun that isn't suppressed, and I wouldn't shoot a suppressor that wasn't made in Utah. Well, there's some good ones in Wyoming.
That one right there is a 28 Nosler. It was built by Boring Rifles, one of my clients, and shooting that, I can sit at the range all day with the covering and shoot it. Don't have a headache. Don't have any issues. Same with my 338 Lapua. I screw a can. I shoot a Silencer Co. Harvester Big Bore 338 Lapua. It recoils almost like a 308. So our suppressor will help with multiple things. It'll help with recoil. It'll help with accuracy in a lot of situations. It does add a little bit of weight. So you look at your weight, and the biggest issue with suppressors is the wait time with the ATF. It sucks. I am an SOT, so when I order one, I get one in 4 days. Everybody else has to wait 6 to 8 months or whatever the time is. But that's one of the nice things. And it's like my 22 suppressors. You can't see these. There's a bunch of 22s. I've got probably, 20 22s now. And putting a 22 suppressor on there is a game changer for kids because it's not loud. Yeah,
what he's saying is don't wait. Get one, get it bought, pay your $200 tax stamp. Is it two or $250?
It's $200.
Yeah, pay your $200 and start to wait. Because the sooner you start to wait, the sooner you get your suppressor, and the sooner you can do it right. So,
so let's kind of go back into the coyote aspect of things, because I always have questions too. So your top, let's say your top 4 sounds. What are your top 4 sounds? Starting with number 4, going to number 1.
I don't leave a stand without playing Coyote Pup Distress 3. That's number 4. That you've got Coyote Pup. There's more coyotes have died to Coyote Pup Distress 3 than all the other sounds combined.
I play that.
Why? And that
right?
I don't. That's number 4 on the list because it's not my go-to first sound, but it's my end sound, and it's got to be on everybody's list. Do not leave a stand. I don't care what time of year it is. whether it's August, September, October, November, December, January, February, March, April, May. We're Fox Pro. We do it year round, and we do it right, and we do it year round because of Coyote Pup Distress 3. That sound alone. I'm going to say my number one howl now. It was female yodel howl. It then went to female soar howl. Now my number one sound is C5 young pup howl. Those are all. What silencer, Cole, would you recommend for my Creedmoor? That's up to you, Cole. I would recommend the OSS. That's just me. Go ahead. Tell him what silencer, Cole.
The Omega or the Harvester for 100%. This one is the new 36M. So this suppressor will go from 22 horn up to 338 Lapua. That's how cool the suppressor is. I do have, it's actually right here on my, this is one of my 300 blackouts. This is the Omega, just a standard Omega. It's short, it's light. Recoil is phenomenal. If it were me, I'd probably go with the Omega. 100%.
You're going to put a thermal on that one. Yeah, you're going to put a thermal on that when we go thermaling.
Have you ever watched shit, what is it? It's up in Canada. What the hell's the name of that show? Letterkenny.
I think
watched
Letterkenny. No, I'm not a Letterkenny fan. Everybody likes it though.
He answers, does a duck with a boner drag weeds?
I think that's
probably,
yes.
That was probably a little too much for Facebook and Instagram.
So the next sound, single lone howls. I can't pick the first one. It's going to be female soar, female yodel, or C5 young pup. That's number one. The next sound, my number two sound is Mrs. McCottontail, went right to the top. And then my number three sound is going to be Lightning Jack. So I've got howls at the front, two rabbits in the middle, and Coyote Pup Distress 3 at the end. Now we've got there's several pup sounds that are just Pup Pie 314, Pup 314 on the Fox Pros. Don't get caught up in this battle with ultrasound. That's the term I'm looking for. There's a new caller coming out that they say he's going to revolutionize calling. It's going to make all other callers obsolete, and it's bullshit. At the end of the day, ultrasound, if you have 75% humidity, how far do you think ultrasound can go? And now this is because three of the engineers at Fox Pro worked for GE and other major companies. In ultrasound was their specialty. So our company knows ultrasound better than anybody. If ultrasound was an advantage, it would have been on a Fox Pro 10 years ago. Because we've been
ultrasound or ultrasonic.
Ultrasound, ultrasonic, it's the same thing.
What do you get with a baby, isn't it?
Ultrasound. Well, yeah, it's all wave therapy. And ultrasound is really tight. When sound waves travel through the air like this, it's in a wave. Ultrasound is very tight, very close together. In 75% humidity and any kind of wind condition, how far do you think ultrasound can travel?
You told me, but I can't remember. It was only like
50 to 100 yards max, and it's totally dissipated. It doesn't exist after. And if it's 75% humidity and 5 miles an hour, you ain't going to get 50 yards out of it. Most predators, you're not going to set up within 50 yards of, and anything outside of that's probably not going to hear it. I invite you all to go look into ultrasound yourself. Before you purchase a collar that you think is the pie in the sky, you need to understand that ultrasound is only good at max in best conditions to 100 yards. Total max. I will stand by that. I will testify in a court of law that what little I know about ultrasound, you cannot go much past 100 yards ever. And so even these predators that hear amazing, if they're at 300 yards and you're playing ultrasound to them, they ain't never going to hear it. Not in ultrasound. They're going to hear the regular sound waves that are bigger, broader, and are cutting through the atmospheric conditions. It's just, I encourage you to go research it yourself. That's all I'll say about ultrasound.
So that's one of the big things that I always ask, and everybody asks, and I already know the answer to this because I own two of them. Out of the Fox Pro line, what's your favorite? And why?
So prior to this, the CS-24 was the best call ever made. That's why it was the most copied caller ever made. The new X series, the X Wave, the X2S, the X24, and the X1. The new XHD speaker is 10 times better than the CS-24 ever was. And it's because of the new. Well, it's because technology's no, it's technology's gotten better. And there's companies out there want to say their caller is just as good. They don't have the XHD speaker. You can't buy an XHD speaker. They're only made in Pennsylvania. Nobody makes them. They can't put them on those cheap foreign-made units because it doesn't exist over there. They're going to tear ours apart and think they can make it, but they probably can't. At the end of the day, that new XHD speaker is what sets it apart. Now, prior to this, that CS-24, every time I'd call a coyote in or that shockwave, those coyotes would come in and start circling at 10 yards, 15 yards. Now, every time a coyote comes to that caller, he's trying to put his nose in that speaker. Whatever speaker noise, white noise, whatever you want to call it, I've never seen a reaction to a speaker like I'm seeing now. The new X series is by far and away the finest set of calls that are ever going to be built. And they're made in America by the hardworking Americans in Lewistown, Pennsylvania. We're the only call company. We're made in America. You can't buy this stuff overseas. Some of the components in the internals are only made. If we could source it in the United States, we would, but it would be so expensive. We couldn't afford to sell you. We're the most expensive e-collars on the market because we are made in America by hardworking Americans. We're paying that. And if Joe Biden gets elected, foxpro may not be in business because of the tax. You know, if it wasn't for Trump, if it wasn't for his tax relief, I don't know, foxpro at 80 employees, 50 to 80 employees, whatever it is foxpro has now, 50 to 80 American families are making a living, and it's only because it works. And we've got to charge $599 for that collar because that's what we're into it. And it's just it's unparalleled. There is no other. These other foreign-made units have great sound. I can't dispute that. I won't. But they aren't made in America. You can't get them serviced in America. You can only get sent parts. If your Chinese collar breaks, you're going to probably get another one. And how can they make money sending out a new collar? If something breaks on your foxpro, you send it to Lewistown, Pennsylvania. They've got the ultimate set of tools. They can fix anything. And we got the best customer service in the business. We've got the largest sound library. Our sound library will match. I'm killing 80 to 100 coyotes a year on video, and I don't need anybody else's sounds, just foxpros. And if you think you've got to have those other sounds, go get them. But some of them won't work on a foxpro because they only work on their particular units, and the calls that you can get on your foxpro, it's going to make your foxpro that much better. At the end of the day, coyote calling is about woodsmanship, inserting yourself into their environment, and manipulating that animal. And that's what coyote calling, you said it today. You love the challenge of calling the predators. It thrills you. It's exciting when you do it. Mm-hmm. It's changed my life. We've put kids through college doing it. And for me, it was fun, but it became an avenue for me to pursue a life dream. I always wanted to get paid to kill coyotes. And it's been a life dream, and I'm blessed to do it. It's challenging. And I don't do it I don't make that series. You don't see the series I made from November to February. I've got to kill them in March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December, January. We do it year round, and we do it right. And it's foxpro. It's the foxpro motto. With the rechargeable battery pack, like for the CS-24, work on the new collars. Yes, but the new collars, we've upped the ohms or something. I could grab one of my collars and show you. The old rechargeable pack probably will run your new X-Wave X series, but you're going to want the new, the upgraded, the new lithium battery pack. And that's all the new. When you look up the X series, before, when you bought a Shockwave, you had to separately buy the rechargeable batteries for it or run the AA's you bought at Walmart. Our units run better on the rechargeable lithiums, and we sell that. And now when you buy an X series collar, it comes standard with the rechargeable lithium battery pack and the charger. So that price includes the battery, where before it never did with foxpro, and I think it's better now. There's no hidden. When you get a unit, you can put batteries in the remote and you can run your collar. And these collars are I'm going to live another 20, 30 years, I hope. But I don't think I'll ever see a better unit than that X-24 that I've been running. We called 16 coyotes in a day and a half. We got 12, 13 of them on video, and every one of them wanted to put their face in the speaker. And some of them didn't. They smelled us out at 200 or 300 yards. We had to shoot them at distance with our rifles, with our Rugers. But at the end of the day, these new collars are nothing short of amazing. Ben P has a question on stand duration. How long do you sit a stand? How long do you let your sounds play during the stand? I'm in Northwest Iowa running a Shockwave and a suppressed 22 Nosler AR with thermal. Northwest Iowa. I'm going to be in Northeast Iowa in a week and a half chasing big deer, Ben. In Iowa, I would stay 20 to 30 minutes. I would vocalize. Your coyotes are full. They eat deer. They're fat on whitetails and all the rodents that eat all the grain that you've got in that area. And then you got all the ducks and the geese. And I don't care where in Iowa you are, you've got farm country and grain country. I would sit 20 to 30 minutes. Every time it's different, I would run vocals for a few minutes, sit in silence for a few minutes, run some more vocals, sit in silence, play some pup 3, some pup distress, some pup fight. And then at the end of that 20, 30 minutes, at about 20, 22 minutes, I would run some vole squeaks, chicken distress, cat distress. You know, those coyotes are eating them farm cats out of them farmers' barns and stuff. Play a different kind of distress. You got rabbits. I know there's cottontails, and in some areas of Iowa, there's jacks. And in some areas of Iowa, there's, they got a lot of bobcats, and they're eating turkeys. I would run pheasant distress. I would run those weird distresses for a few minutes, and it might shock you how many bonus coyotes you pick up in Iowa. Running that Nosler with the thermal at night, you vocalize. Those coyotes will not tolerate another coyote in the area. They're the most territorial animals on the planet. I would stick to a lot of coyote vocals in Iowa.
And
we need to come video.
He should have the actual, there should be a lot of fox around there too. From the few times I've been in Iowa, there's been a lot of fox.
Yep.
So, yeah. So, and that's a lot of the things starting with vole squeaks and different things, but you've got to understand that.
Yeah.
So we've gone for an hour and 17 minutes. We've released a lot of information. So let's do one final thing, because a lot of people are going to want to know this. So from Al Morris pulling up his truck, parking, putting it in park, before he gets out of the truck, walk me through an entire stand of what you do. So if you were a rookie, you'd never done this, you were still trying to learn, you're frustrated, you haven't called any coyotes, you're still trying to learn it. Let's hear what Al would do getting in and out of the truck to try and understand that baseline. You've talked about a baseline and understanding coyotes. What would you do to get that baseline?
So when I pull up, the first thing I look at is the piece of orange flagging tape that I've tied to my radio antenna. I can look right out my window and see what direction the wind's blowing. I then determine that if I've done my homework, if I've howled, if I've located, I've looked for tracks, looked for scat. Let's say I'm hunting in Iowa and I've got permission on this guy's farm. I'm going to walk to a point of trees, a point of a field. It doesn't matter. It's all the same, whether I'm hunting sagebrush or fields in Iowa. I'm going to break that into where can I see, where do I think the coyotes are, and where do I want to get them to come to? And I want them to come expose themselves. And that exposure can be at a fence line. That exposure can be at the edge of a sagebrush line. It can be the edge of hardwoods. I'm going to get out of the truck and I'm going to I'm going to shut my door. I'm not going to slam the door. I'm going to close the door so it does not slam. I do not want those coyotes to know I'm there. When I get to the fence that I've got to cross, I do not, I'm 300 pounds. If I go over a fence, it's going to squeak. I usually go through or under a fence, and I'm trying to be extremely quiet. I always have my chair, my sticks, my collar, and my gun. And most times, if I'm contest calling, I'll have a shotgun on one shoulder and a rifle on the other. I won't make a stand without a shotgun if I'm serious about killing coyotes, because I know we were going to get those drive-by. I call them drive-bys. They come by at 10, 15 yards, hauling butt. They never stop, never slow down. And Cole could probably offhand them, hip shoot them with his rifle. Me, I've got to have a 12 gauge with that 3-inch BB load from Hornady going out of it to stand a chance of hitting him at 20 yards running full tilt. I then have picked where I want to. It's usually on a point. It's on the edge of a field. 100 yards, 200 yards away, I can see a field edge, a fence. It's my sagebrush has gone from heavy sage down to thin sage that's only smaller grass, yellow grass, whatever it is. Maybe there's trees, junipers, that pinyon juniper forest above me. I'll go sit down. I'll take my collar. I usually take it 30 yards, 30 to 50 yards, because I know I can shotgun anything that comes to that collar. And I'll set it, and I'll usually sit directly downwind. If it's a crosswind, I'll set it to if the wind's coming this way, I'll set the collar over here. So if they circle to get the wind, they're coming right into the pocket. I call it the kill zone. At the World Championship, we would mark 25 stands for day 1, 12 stands for day 2. I would mark where I would sit. I would mark where Garvin would sit. I would mark where the call went for me. I would mark where Garvin's call. Yes, we took 2 calls to every stand. I would do nothing but vocals on mine, maybe with some small distress in rodents and stuff like that. He would run the rabbits and the other things out of the shockwave. I would have the CS-24C running some of the vocals. And I would vocalize and pray distress at almost every stand the first week of December. I would be exactly 60 to 70 yards downwind of Garvin. I would map the winds for 3 days before the contest. I would map the exact winds that I think I was going to get during contest. So I would know exactly where I was sitting, where Garvin was sitting, where the callers would be, and I knew exactly where those coyotes were going to come from. I would mark that on 25 to 32 stands for day 1, and I would mark 12 to 15 stands for day 2. And that is the detail that I go into setting up a stand. If I'm hunting for fun or videoing, I don't go to quite the detail. I just know where the cameraman's going to sit, where I'm going to sit, and where the caller's going to be, and where I think the coyotes are going to come from. The problem was thinking where the coyotes are going to come from. It's Murphy's Law out there. They can come from any direction. So you need to be prepared for anything. 365 degrees is in play. But knowing that, I will go out there. 9 times out of 10, I will do a single lone howl. I will sit silent for 2 to 3 minutes. Then I'll play some form of distress this time of year. Once January 15th comes, I will do nothing but vocalize. And it will be usually challenges, single lone howls into challenges, into breeding whimpers in February and March. I can do that with my diaphragm. I have whimpers on my collar. If I'm hunting dogging season, it's vocals into pups. And I use my dogs as decoy dogs. And you can go on that YouTube channel and you can watch us use those decoy dogs. That is a basic stand. I'm there 15 to 20 minutes, 30 minutes. Once that 20 minutes is hit, I'm fidgety. I'm ready to go. If I'm only hunting 2 or 3 stands in a day, I may stay 45 minutes to an hour. There is no set standard. Do not buy into the 15 minutes and done, 15 minutes and done. If you're grinding a day out, that's probably a good call. If you're not grinding a day, if you're out calling for fun, stay a few minutes longer. Let that sound saturate the area. How much wind is going on? A 10-mile-an-hour wind, cut your day in half. 20-mile-an-hour wind, cut that in half. And if it's a 30-mile-an-hour wind, you might as well go watch Oprah. It's going to be a tough day. The problem with hunting the World Championships those years was that we didn't get a choice. You went hunting. And I learned to call coyotes. And when it's blowing 25 mile an hour, you make short 8-minute stands, move quarter mile, half mile, and do it again if you're in a coyote-rich environment. How do you find a coyote-rich environment? Go around at night and howl. Every 2 miles, stick that foxpro out, play coyote group yip howl, single howls, and locate them. And with Onyx now, I could just push a button and get my Onyx map. I used to tie ribbon to a delineator post or a fence post. And then the next day we would go back during daylight hours and hunt where our flagging was. And we knew it was a target rich environment. I will not hunt an area that I can't go 30 or 40 miles and get a coyote to howl at me every time I stop, every 1.5 to 2 miles. Finding a place like that today is really hard. There's not many places that don't. There's so many guys out doing it. But at the end of the day, if you want to be serious about it, you will go locate, you will go find your coyotes, and then you will go beat them up. And just finding coyotes isn't all it is to it. You need to learn how to call those coyotes in. And then the biggest aspect to winning world championships wasn't that we were the best callers. We probably shot better than the rest of the team. And that's why I'm so excited to team up with Team POI. Cole Kornberg can help you be a better shooter. I know he's helped me be a better shooter just in the last month that we went and he helped me chrono my guns. He showed me some programs. He got my Kestrel out, showed me how to run my Kestrel better. And it's been invaluable that if you're going to be a good, serious coyote hunter, you need to shoot your guns better. And the only way you shoot guns better, Cole, is to do what?
Practice and get your shit together. And that's one of the big things.
Shoot them more.
And that's one of the biggest things that I've kind of had a lot of discussions with a lot of shooters about, you know, and I see a lot of guys going and shooting prone. I see them going and shooting off a bench, and they're like, oh, that's good. That's how we're going to do it. But I've heard from a lot of great hunters that you've got to practice how you're going to hunt. You've got to practice, you know, like if Al's going to shoot off his bog pod, he needs to set up his bog pod at the range, sit down exactly like he's going to do it, and just shoot it. Because you've got to understand ballistically what that gun's going to do. Because, you know, most of the shots nowadays, especially in tall grass and, you know, most of the stuff, you're going to be off the ground. So you've got to understand a lot of that stuff, you know, whether it be off a tripod, a bog pod, however you're going to do it. But understand and learn how you're going to, you know, attack whatever stand you're going to be on. Because I have never gone to a coyote stand and laid prone. I never have, you know, because it's not comfortable. I'm fat. I roll. So it's one of those things.
And Bill Countess, one of my mentors, that's the only way he would shoot coyotes was to roll over prone. And he was more accurate that way.
Isn't he in New Mexico on the Indian reservation?
He was in Colorado. Yeah, down in Mancos, Colorado. And he's killed more coyotes than anybody I know, and he would only shoot prone. We'd be laying there and he'd roll over in the snow and it'd make noise and he'd roll over prone and shoot those coyotes. And it was amazing to watch him do it. And I was stunned every time he did. I'm really excited about the future, Cole. We can go. Do you do a lot of e-scouting on Onyx? I haven't, but I will. Onyx has become a big partner of ours, Fox Pro Hunting TV. I'm going to do more with it. I know Cole works with them. The future's bright because about every month and a half, 2 months, 3 months, whenever Cole will let me, we'll come on and we'll talk about what coyotes are doing that time of year. And we'll talk about some more techniques about shooting better, calling better, doing all this. I'm excited about the future, Cole, and I really appreciate you inviting me on.
Yeah, it's not a problem. You know, I've heard, seen a few of you be like, hey, how, you know, what's it going to cost, different things. We haven't figured that out. We just started talking about this. So it's one of those things that we've got to decide what kind of time it's going to take. Now, if it's
when, good, where, how, and what we're going to offer. If we've got rifles and scopes and ammo there, you know, we're going to give as part of the package. The package is going to be more expensive. And then we got to factor in our time and hopefully we can get the sponsors to kick some of this in and maybe we can reduce the price and make it reasonable for us, make it reasonable for you guys to come hang out with us. I really don't think you can learn. I've been to the same shooting school with Cole. I just don't think you can get anybody teaching us anything more about shooting long range, shooting our rifles better than we can get in Cole. I know there ain't nobody out there can teach you more about coyote calling than me and Garvin can with these Fox Pros. And we're going to come up with something. If we do it, it's going to be kick ass and it's going to be done right. So,
yeah, we'll create a whole bunch of stuff around it, some social media, some different things. And I'm excited because everybody wants to take the next step, but they don't necessarily know how. I think this is going to be a huge way for you to take a step with a small, an estimate, or, putting a little bit of money in yourself, investing in yourself, and getting all the tips and tricks in one place. I think it's going to be a huge value asset to a lot of you. So it's
this James Ackerman's just on here. What choke do you use on your shotgun, and how far is too far for a shotgun? I use a turkey choke, a Carlson, and I've killed coyotes out to 90 yards with certain loads. And that new TSS shot really extends your range. That Hornady BB, 50, 60 yards is no problem. And you'll see us use it on video. James, there's a lot of discussion about how far is too far with a rifle. What's your answer to that, Cole? How far is too far to shoot a rifle at an elk, let's say?
That's a loaded question when you get to that.
It really is. I don't think there's a distance too far to shoot at a coyote. Why? Because it's a coyote. If you shoot and wound the coyote, what did you do? You wounded a coyote. We don't want to wound them, but it happens. If you shoot and wound an elk, that's different. You only got one elk tag and you wounded him. You probably ought to call him yours. And
yeah. And there's one guy that I shoot with. He's probably one of the top 10 shooters in the country. His name's Nick Godarzi. And he's been recording a lot of stuff with our phone scopes. He's up in Washington, and he's been shooting. He's trying to keep all of his coyotes at 700 yards and more. Now, a coyote at 700 yards is less than an MOA, depending on which way you look at it. You've got more wind,
6 inches
elevation, so it's a teeny target. But the biggest thing is, what are you comfortable in shooting, and do you understand your ballistics to shoot that far? Now, a lot of us have shot at something and got lucky and hit it. But how many times do you get lucky and hit it, especially with wind and all the variables, humidity, temperature, elevation, all the things that come into contact with that, which is what we would teach you at shooting school.
When did we take that shooting school together, Cole?
That was the U.S. Optics Shooting School. That was Jim Gilliland. That was back in like 2016, 2015. It's been a minute.
4 or 5 years. Mm-hmm. I've been hitting more coyotes since that school. Yeah. And I know it made me better. And I just really excited that if we can throw something together with the shooting and the calling, I think we'll hit a home run. Stacy Moody, I don't take those offers lightly. I've been to Tennessee. I've hunted coyotes there. I know you got plenty of them. One last question, X2S, X24. Your preference is the X24? If I'm just going to run for sounds, the X24 plays everything in 24-bit. If it was recorded in 24-bit, and that's the thing. A lot of guys don't understand sound. This ultrasound stuff, it's all – the X24 plays it in 24-bit. If it was recorded in 24-bit, it'll play it in 24. The X2S is the only – that and the X-Wave, you can play stuff from your phone. You can Bluetooth sounds from your phone onto the X2S and the X-Wave. The X24 does not Bluetooth, but it plays it in X20. It plays it in 24-bit. So, and the X1 is just a 16-bit player with a cheaper remote. For $399, you can get into the X series collars with the battery ready to go with 100 loaded sounds. You can go kill the snot out of coyotes all day long. And we could talk for 3 hours, but I know Cole wants to wrap this up. So, Cole, take me down the road.
I appreciate it. Keep your eyes out. We're going to try and push some of this stuff out if we decide that, it's the route we want to go and we figure out all the details, because we don't want to go forward without knowing the details. I'm going to pull this page back up. Now, you listening aren't going to be able to see it, but it's FoxPro Inc., FoxPro on YouTube. I know my little boy watches it all the time, watches Alan Abner and everybody put down coyotes.
Go foxpro.com. GOFOXPRO.com is our website.
Yeah, and this is a good way for you to do it. Getting kids involved, doing different things. I've had a few people ask me on here, suppressors. Yes, I do sell them. Yes, I can get them to you. It is a wait, so don't wait. If you really want one, get one done now. Tune in.
Don't wait.
Yeah. Tune in to Long Range Addicts podcast. We have a lot of long range stuff. So if you want to learn long range, there's a lot of good information on here. We'll have Al on again. Me and Al are going to go. We're planning on going thermal hunting here pretty soon, thermal suppressed. We'll put the silencer coil and the OSS up and see who's quieter. we'll put some money on.
Here's the deal, Cole. I can't run. I've got the only 243 AR. It's on an AR 308 platform, but it's the only 243 Ruger ever made, AR-10, and I can't run it with a baffle system. I have to have the flow-through technology. The OSS makes my 243 night gun run like a sewing machine. So that it's got the win right there. I can run my night gun with the OSS. I can't with a baffle suppressor. So that's why OSS wins.
Look at this friggin' salesman. Look at him sell. Anyway, I appreciate y'all coming, listening tonight. This crap was stupid on the Facebook channel and everything else. So hopefully we can share it around. If you enjoyed it, please share it with your friends. Go out there, put it on your Facebook page, put it on, click the share button on Long Range Addicts podcast. There is a Facebook and Instagram page. Go to the Facebook page, click share it to your friends, let them learn. And if you have questions, ask. That's the biggest thing. I will forward the questions on that you want to ask Al if you have any. So please ask. Again, thanks for listening, and hopefully y'all have a great night. And we're
God bless. See you down the road.
We're going to look forward to seeing you again. Thanks all.